So good afternoon, my name is Naomi Fira, and I am a program manager with the Creative Economy Practice, and I'm based out of the Nairobi office. Welcome all to the Fashionomics Africa Accelerator and Incubator online program. Today, we will be covering Sustainable and Circular Economy Actions by United Nations Environmental Programme. Kindly note that translations are available in English, French, Portuguese, and Arabic. Look for the round interpretation icon that resembles a globe at the bottom of your screen to select your language. Today's session will be 1.5 hours, and we will be covering an in-depth look at eco-innovation and sustainability across the value chain. While you wait, please check to see that your camera is working, and also share in the chat what you'd be looking to get out of this session today. Before we start, here are some ground rules. Switch on your camera if you can. Use the chat box to ask questions. Again, please don't raise your hand. If you need to ask a question, use the chat box to ask a question. What we discuss stays here. Mute your microphone, participate actively, give space to others to participate. Please ensure that your Zoom name matches your registration name. This is for the purpose of taking attendance. Attendance will be taken anytime during the session. So again, we ask you to ensure that your Zoom name matches your registration name so that you're not marked absent. So for today's facilitators, we have a diverse pool of facilitators, starting with Abraham Omotayo, who is the project manager for ICT and lead for the Fashionomics Africa Incubator Program. Welcome on the call, Abraham. Then there's myself, Naomi Fira, a program manager with the Creative Economy Practice, who will be representing CC Hub and also well known to the Fashionomics Africa Accelerator Program participants. Finally, we have Minori Lee, who is working with the Department for Sustainable and Circular Textiles at the United Nations Environmental Programme, and she will be starting us off with today's session. Welcome, Minori, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Naomi. So it's a pleasure to be here today, and really looking forward to a good discussion, and I hope that this can be useful. So if we go to the next slide, I'll just give a bit of an introduction to eco-innovation, which is sort of the methodology that we look through for sustainable textiles at UNEP. So this is a methodology that was created by UNEP, funded by the EU, and this is something that we've been working for several years on helping SMEs apply in their business activities. So the eco-innovation methodology uses a combination of templates that help you analyze your business model from, an environmental, social, but also business perspective, so that you can understand your impacts and create new business models that have improved impacts on the environment, your local communities, but also your profits. So today we've chosen a few key concepts within eco-innovation to go through, and a few key templates to sort of go through as an exercise. This is really just to give you an idea of how to apply eco-innovation in your business and the sort of thinking that is needed. And today we have, as Naomi said, 1.5 hours. And really just to emphasize, normally this eco-innovation training is 10 modules that are 2.5 hours each. So today is really just an introduction. So please, just understand that this is really an introduction, and to get you used to thinking holistically about your business and where it is in the value chain. So now that, I've explained a little bit of the context, eco-innovation is developing and applying a new business model that's shaped by a new business strategy that incorporates sustainability throughout all business operations based on life cycle thinking and cooperating with partners across the value chain. So if you have questions about life cycle thinking or value chain, we will be covering these terms in the next few minutes. And so the idea is that this is a coordinated set of modifications or new solutions for your business, processes, and everything about how your business is structured, how your business focuses its work, that that hopefully leads to not only better company performance, but also better comparative advantage and competitive advantage. So maybe if we can go to the next slide, please. So the idea is to embed sustainability in all levels of the company's operations. So that includes the business strategy, the business model, and the actual operations. And really, we understand that businesses can't work in their own little bubble, even though we have the little bubble on that slide. You really need to work with all the people that are influenced and can influence your business. So for us, it's really a holistic way of thinking. You really understand the whole ecosystem that you are part of, and understanding the impacts, but also the potential opportunities for that. So if we go to the next slide, thanks. Eco-innovation should consider all the three aspects of sustainability. So it's not just about environmental impacts, it's about your social impacts. So, you know, worker safety, customer safety, the local community, where you have your operations, you know, gender, and also economic sustainability. So making sure that this is profitable, because at the end of the day, you need to make a livelihood. Eco-innovation requires a holistic approach. And so by incorporating economic, social, and environmental considerations, it's really understanding the entire context. The third point is that implementation has to start with the business strategy. So it's not enough to just you know, have resource efficiency improvements. So, you know, energy efficiency is great, you know, reducing water use is great, but it really has to be in the heart of your business strategy to incorporate, you know, thinking about the impacts. And as I mentioned earlier, it requires cooperation across the entire value chain. So if we go to the next slide, this sounds like a lot of work, and it's true, but we have found in our years working on eco-innovation that there are 5 business drivers for eco-innovation that really make it worth this effort. So one is you get to access new and expanding markets. And, you know, we've seen that the younger generations are really interested in products that are socially and environmentally responsible, for example. It increases profitability along the value chain. So when you work in collaboration with your stakeholders, everybody wins. You stay ahead of standards and regulations. And for example, if you export to the European Union, we know that the EU's upcoming strategy on sustainable and circular textiles is going to impact anyone who puts a product on the EU market. So by being eco-innovative, you actually don't have to play catch up in essence. It also allows you to attract investment because you stand out and you have all the information and the business mapping already done. So you can make your business case in a language that the finance industry understands. And you can increase productivity and technical capacity by really looking at every part of your business, from your business model to your business operations to, you know, what sort of raw materials you use to how your customers use your product, or what happens to them after customers no longer use them. So it's really, in our experience, this has been the 5 biggest, most compelling reasons for eco-innovation. And so if we go to the next slide, this was, I'll just touch on this quickly. Last year, we went back to the SMEs that we worked with on eco-innovation, and we asked if it helped them become more resilient to shocks, including COVID-19. And so they reported back to us that, because of this, they had more diverse operations. So, for example, when they had a business model on, sorry, I'm completely blanking, but basically they had multiple business models. So for example, when one was based around tourism for a cinnamon plantation, and obviously tourism during COVID took a really big hit, they were able to diversify crops because they had done soil quality improvements so that it was able to provide diverse product offerings. They're also more prepared and adaptable to new circumstances. They organize their operations to be flexible and modular, and they have stronger relationships with customers, suppliers, communities, and employees. So, for example, we found that a company that involved employees in their eco-innovation process by, asking their opinion and helping them be part of solutions, those employees were more loyal during COVID and actually went above and beyond to make sure that the business survived. So I'm just going to pause here and check if anyone has any questions. I realize I ran very quickly through this, and more information is available on the eco-innovation website, which I will post in the chat. So let me just, Naomi, if there are any any questions that I should respond to, otherwise
not just yet,
okay.
Minori, and we will cover the questions at the very end, so we will be collecting them as we're going along.
Okay, fantastic. And yeah, just to say that we'll be sharing the links to the eco-innovation methodology and all the resources, as well as the slides afterwards. Okay, and with that, I'll hand over to Abraham.
All right, thanks, Minori. Just like we've learned about the eco-innovation approach. So we'll be looking at the value chain thinking. As a fashion business, what should you be looking at? And so basically in this session, we'll start by looking at introduction to the value chain. So essentially, what you would notice is that a lot of time as business owners, we tend to think of the value chain and we tend to restrict it largely to the supply chain. But the value chain is beyond the supply chain and actually also even more than the life cycle. So in the life cycle, we have both the raw materials, manufacturing. So in the supply chain, we have the raw materials, manufacturing, distribution, and retail. But that's just limited to that aspect. And then we have the overall life cycle. So when you're looking at the value chain, you're not just looking at your raw materials or the suppliers from whom you get your raw materials of manufacturing process or distribution and retail. You're thinking beyond that, and you're looking at the consumers as well, and waste, how the overall product that is being made, how is it properly disposed or recycled. Now let me mention here that it's important, just like Minori has said, that there's a collaboration among the actors in the value chain and also the consumers as well. You say, but the value chain does not just speak about the intrinsic factors, that is what you can control. It also speaks about the external factors such as legal, the environment, and then the social impact of what you're doing. So overall, when we speak about the value chain, we're speaking about the economic and the social value. So it's important as a fashion business owner that you're not just thinking about production and then selling off, but also thinking about the sustainability as it pertains to your end user. Are they also adopting sustainability practices? And this is very important so that you're not just limiting your operations either to the supply chain or to the life cycle, but overall, you're covering the whole value chain and you're ensuring that sustainability is covered across board. Next slide, please. So in the next slide, we'll try to sort of make a clarification between the supply chain and the value chain thinking. So the value chain thinking is basically looking at all of the processes, all of the different sectors or segments within the value chain, and ensuring that across board, you're thinking about sustainability. And you're not just thinking about sustainability as it pertains to your business alone, also, your production process alone. We're thinking about sustainability also as it pertains to the consumers, right? What are they doing? What sustainability practice are they also able to do by reason of coming into contact with your brand? And the more you do this, what you realize is that there will now be a symbiotic relationship between your suppliers and also your consumers and yourself. And overall, in the life cycle, you will be constantly thinking about how do you ensure that value is being optimized, and how do you ensure that your economic value, you're true to the economic value, but not just the economic value, but the social value as well and the environmental value. You need to put all of this to mind while developing your business strategy. And this is very important, not just in the production of your fashion design, but also in ensuring that your consumers are also a part of the sustainability eco-innovation process. Next slide. So here we'll take a typical example at what the textile value chain looks like. Now, so if you look at what you will see here is that across the value chain, we have fiber production, yarn and fabric production, we have textile production, we have consumption, and we have end of life. Now, for a lot of people on this call, chances are that you sit largely around the textile production, section. Now, in this bit, this basically has to do with garments, designers, as well as brands that work on production of outfits and the likes. But you see, as a textile producer, you're not working in silos. You also have to understand that there are different actors in the value chain, and you have to also collaborate with them. And by collaborating with them, you also have to ensure that from the beginning to the very end, you're thinking eco-innovation. And by thinking eco-innovation, you're not just thinking about the internal things that you have control over. So if you look at the third row here, you will see that there are also external things that can also affect your business. So in cases here, we see those that are also constantly making advocacy for increased use of sustainability practice and eco-innovation. Now, so you will see that we have, for instance, UN organization, local and national government agencies, regulations, buyers. And if you were able to understand the partners that you can leverage, what it will do for you is that it would also help you to ensure that in developing your business strategy, you can also leverage the resources that are available with these partners to optimize your production and also ensure that even your consumers understand, are also more familiar with eco-innovation practice, and they're able to deliver, and they're able to not just dispose the product once they use it, but it's being recycled and it can be reused. Oh, sorry. Please confirm if you can hear me. I see that I'm speaking a bit fast, so I'll try to speak slower. Next slide, please. Now, typically, a lot of fashion designers tend to stay around the linear system. So basically, you get the different designs, different materials that you need from producers, and then you ensure that haven't done your production and it goes across to the consumer, and that's where it stops. There is no follow-up to ensure that the process is cyclical in such a way that there's a circular system, that the product that you have created is not just being disposed, but rather it's being reused. And by reused, it could be that you as a fashion designer, you're getting it back from the consumer, and you're also able to reuse the outfits that you're receiving, or it can also be repurposed for another process, for another use. So essentially, circular system is very important, and it ensures that in all that you're doing, your materials, you ensure that the value across the system is preserved, and you're able to get the best value across the value chain. All right, so I now hand over to Naomi, she takes us through identifying sustainability hotspots.
Thank you, Abraham. There's a number of questions in the chat box. Please keep them coming. We will be addressing the questions at the end in the question and answer session. So life cycle thinking is about tracing products throughout its entire life cycle. So when we look at examples of life cycle phases for products, it will include manufacturing, consumption, and disposal. And life cycle thinking includes a focus on impact beyond the traditional production and manufacturing processes to include environmental, social, and economic impacts. So in summary, life cycle thinking offers a holistic vision of all these generated impacts. So there's then a need to assess the impact generated in each phase and seek opportunities to reduce, be it consumption, and increase the performance of products and services. So with eco-innovation applies life cycle thinking and looks for opportunities to identify solutions and new business models. Next slide, please. Thank you. So now that we have understood life cycle thinking, now an important step in eco-innovation is to create a life cycle inventory to identify potential hotspots. When we talk of hotspots, hotspots being opportunities to reduce consumption and increase performance of a product. We will shortly be doing an exercise to identify these hotspot opportunities. As this chart demonstrates, the life cycle inventory will map out all the phases of the product's life cycle, which will include fiber production. If you follow me, just in the ribbon at the bottom with arrows. So this will be fiber production, yarn and fabric production, textile production, use and end of life. And we also have other activities out of scope. So for the purposes of this exercise, we shall focus on textile production where majority of your operations are. So in the chat, could you please share opportunities where you see reduction of waste can happen and increase of utilization of resources, be it like when you're producing dresses, masks, outfits, accessories, and any other item which may be in your focus of production. So you can see usage of silk and cotton is better, upcycling jeans, okay. Using recyclable material for packaging, great. Patchwork, upcycling is another. Vegetable leather, patchwork, zero waste cutting methods, brilliant. Using t-shirt fabric, increased number of dresses from a limited fabric. Okay, yes, there's definitely quite a number of contributions. Upcycling, use of patterns, okay. Reusable packaging, reusing buttons. Oh.
So Naomi, maybe if I can jump in here.
Yes.
So I see from the chat that people are very much thinking about you know, upcycling, recycling, what to do with scraps. So the life cycle inventory template is to really think about, you know, and these are, you know, very much the business model side. The life cycle inventory is really just to look at all the physical inputs that are needed for your business. So for example, if we look at the textile production, because looking at the chat, it looks like a lot of people are in the textile production phase of the life cycle. We need to look at what sort of physical inputs you use in your production, and then what sort of key activities and product outputs. So, you know, for here we would talk about, you know, producing old t-shirts into new yarn, that would be a key activity. And what sort of emissions come as a result of the inputs and the key activities. So for example, you know, you will need electricity. So that would be a key input, and that electricity helps run the machines to recycle old t-shirts into yarn. And then your emissions would be greenhouse gas emissions and potentially, I guess, there could be water waste or, you know, emissions to soil. So it's very much thinking about the physical inputs and the physical outputs. So, oh, I see 108 new messages. So I'm just, yeah, and so I see a comment about using solar panels instead of fuel generators. So that's actually something that we'll go through in the next exercise. For the moment, we're really just taking stock of all the inputs, the physical inputs and the physical processes, and you know, what emissions can come out of that. So I see a question for what example for emissions. So for example, electricity generates, or depending on the source of electricity, coal-fired electricity will generate greenhouse gases and other pollutants. Or for example, if you're involved in printing on products, there will be chemical emissions. Depending on how your processes go, it could be chemical residue in water, it could be chemical residue in soil, it could be chemical residues left in the products. I see another comment on using offcuts for leather. So again, fabric offcuts or leather offcuts would also be another emission. So yeah, if that gives an idea of what sort of emissions can be generated at this process. So Naomi, yeah, sorry to jump in. I'll hand the floor back to you.
Oh, that's perfect, Minori. You got the engagement more targeted. Thank you so much for that. So thank you all for your participation. Let us now review what this might look like in the case of a denim producer. Thank you. So we observed that emissions of greenhouse gases and other pollutants occur through every phase of the product's life cycle. In textile production, the key inputs, as Minori would put it, were water, electricity, and fuel. And you can see that from the chart right here at the center. If we just focus on the ribbon for the textile production and then follow it vertically. Then let us now look at the summary of the impact of textile production across the themes of environment, society, and economy. Next slide, please. So we can see that the key activities for textile production are cutting and sewing. And this is, we're just focusing on one line for the textile production. So if you can see the presentation, it will be the third item from the top. So on environmental impact, we see that wasteful cutting practices lead to high levels of waste generation. So life cycle thinking leads us to ask, can this waste be put together to make something useful? Then we go to social impact. We see that sometimes factory workers may be underpaid even when minimum wage has been set. So again, we go back to life cycle thinking. What does it prompt us to do? And it leads us to ask, how can we do away with impunity at every level and build systems that work for us in Africa? On economic impact, again, we see the risk of corruption and the fragility of the legal system come to play. And again, life cycle thinking can lead us again to ask the same question as before. How can we do away with impunity at every level and build systems that work for us in Africa. So at this point, I'll hand it over back to Minori, who's going to take us through business model canvas.
Thanks, Naomi. So, yes, so the business model canvas, just like the life cycle inventory, it sort of helps you understand your business operations, how they are right now. So it gives you an inventory of what the business model does and who you work with and how it generates money to help you understand what will change if you make any changes. So would it be possible to play the video now? I think it worked in the run through, so hopefully it should work this time. I'm not sure if the audio is working.
Oh, great. Is it a normal rayon?
Okay, it looks like the audio is not working, so maybe we can just skip this. Or Wanjiko, if you could try unmuting.
Channels described through attachments to interactive customers and delivering value. Customer relationships outline the type of relationship you're establishing with your customers. The revenue streams make clear how and through which pricing mechanisms your business model is capturing value. Then you need to describe the infrastructure to create, deliver, and capture value. Key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model. Key activities show which things you really need to be able to perform well. Key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't know all key resources how to perform all key activities. And once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. So with the business model canvas, you can map out your entire business model in one image. This works for startup entrepreneurs just as well as for the most senior executives.
Thanks for that. If you could go back to the slide, maybe I'll do a quick recap. At least for me, I couldn't hear the audio very well, so I imagine that was the same for a lot of you. So yeah, that was, yeah, sorry for that. It did work in the run through, but it happens. So basically, if we can go to the slides, please. For me, I'm still seeing the video. Great, thank you. So if we could go to the next slide. Great. So what we have here is the business model canvas. And this is basically a plan that describes how a business intends to make money. So it's a tool that lets you visualize and assess your entire business model. So the right-hand side, so customer relationships, customer segments, channels, that's focusing on the customer and the market. So it's really the external factors that you can't control. The left-hand side, so your key partners, key activities, and key resources, these focus on the business. So these are internal factors that you can control. In the middle, we have value propositions. So this is where the internal and the external factors meet. So it's how the business exchanges value with customers. And on the bottom, we have cost structure and revenue streams, which focuses on the finances. So maybe I'll just do a quick summary of what the video was going through. So these are 9 building blocks, which are, a key element of each of which are a key element of the business model. So what you would need to do is to fill out this template to describe your complete business model. And so you can then understand, if you change your business model, how does this impact the other blocks? So customer segments describes the different groups of people that you aim to reach and serve. The value proposition goes into the different bundle of products that create value for each customer segment. The channels is, how you communicate and reach each customer segment to deliver the value proposition. Customer relationships, that's, how you establish, or the different types of relationships that you establish with each customer segment. The revenue streams, it's how you generate the cash from each customer segment. The costs must be subtracted from revenues to represent accurately what the earnings are. Key resources are, the most important assets that you need to make a business model work. Your key activities are, what you need to do to make it work. Your key partnership is who you need to make your business model work. Your cost structure is all the costs that you incur in running your business. So it's often easiest to start with the customer's perspective. So, everything on the right-hand side and work to the left. So, maybe if you think about your business and your customer segment, who are you aiming for? Are you aiming for mass market? Are you aiming for the niche market? If anyone has any suggestions or any idea. I see that someone's changed their business model canvas so many times. It's a really good exercise to understand everything about your business. So I see customer segment being the global market, which is great. So that means it's a mass market, right? And so you're also looking at export markets. So you need to have in mind, your product needs to appeal to a lot of different tastes and a lot of different demographies. Sorry, if we could go back to the blank slide, the blank business model canvas. Great, thanks. The luxury market. And different customer segments for different product lines or different models, different business models for different product lines. And I think that's a really good question. It's you can have multiple business models, because if you put all your money and all your resources into one business model, and all of a sudden tastes change, and especially in fashion, we know that changes quite quickly. As a business, you're going to struggle to recover from that. So business models, different business models is really key. And so, yes, so I think we have a good idea of customer segments. In terms of the channels, so how do we communicate with our customers? So if you could just pop in the chat how you currently communicate with customers, or ideas for how you would want to. This can include pre-sale, so how you advertise to customers, during purchase, and also post-sales. So customers come and they want to return something, or they have questions. It's really throughout the entire process. Great. So I see a lot of social media. And I think that's really important. Instagram, Facebook, social media in general. So it looks like a lot of, and a lot of the channels are very much online, it looks like, or I see a traditional press as well, showroom boutiques or retail stores. And so, yeah, it looks like it's a combination of in-person, online. I see a few telephone calls, trade fairs. So these are all really great, great inputs. And so it looks like, yeah, everyone has a good understanding of channels. So for customer relationships, it's thinking about, as a business, do we want to acquire new customers and, that's how we generate profits? Or do we want to have repeat customers? In which case, the relationship needs to be much more personalized. You might need to collect better records of, what your customer preferences are. You need to be thinking about, what do customers expect from their relationship. So for example, if it's a mass market customer segment, we would think about the customer relationship being very much, online, click and it's done. Whereas if it's, really high-end luxury, they expect much more personal interaction. So you would need to either have in-room showrooms or, go to where the customers are, that kind of thing. And then, so if we move to revenue streams, so is the current business model, the sale of physical products? Is it, leasing a product, for example, school uniforms, because kids grow so quickly, you could, that's how you could make your revenue. It could be, asking customers to pay for the benefit of a product rather than owning the product itself. For example, we worked with an ink company where they switched from selling physical printer cartridges to selling refills of ink because customers just want to print, right? They don't want to own printer cartridges. So yeah, that's a idea for revenue. Subscription, yeah, that's also a really great business model because that allows you to have very direct interactions and also understand a bit better, right, about your customer and their preferences. And so moving on to key resources, this can be anything, right? It can be physical, it can be non-physical, it can be, what raw materials do we need? Which employees are really crucial to success? Do we need guard dogs? Yeah, what financial resources do we need? Do we need a loan? Can be, do I need to copyright or patent or trademark, logos or designs, things like that. So it's tangible and also intangible resources. And yeah, I see also, yeah, points about intellectual property protection. I understand, yeah, in many countries in Africa, it's a really, it's difficult not only to register for intellectual property, but once you have it, to also protect it. So yeah, that's also something that's yeah, really important to think about. So key resources, yeah, key activities is, the most important things to do to make the business model work. So it could be developing new products, could be refining your production processes, it could be creating networks of customers, yeah, just it could be collecting customer feedback and using that to refine your product further. Yeah, it's really just what the business needs to make sure that it can continue as a business. The next section is key partners. So who do you need to be successful? Maybe in the chat, I realize that I've been talking a lot and maybe I'll give the poor interpreters a bit of a break. Maybe in the chat, if you could write, you know, who you need to get on board as key partners. I see fabric retailers, fabric vendors, absolutely. Your suppliers are really key. Dispatch companies. So customers would actually go under customer segments, but it could also be key partners that can connect you with new customers. So influencers, for example, a really good example of that. Shipping, logistics, boutique owners, finance for sure, DHL for sure, stockists. Yeah, so that's great. I think we have a really nice list of key partners. Could also be universities for research innovation. You know, the topic of intellectual property came up earlier, so it could be, you know, associations that are working with policymakers to really stress that intellectual property is very important and needs better protection. Delivery, photographers, yep, absolutely, great. So I see some great input. So it's clear that yeah, that this is courage. Courage is definitely a key partner. And finally, cost structure. This is, you know, the two categories of fixed costs. So, you know, that's going to be your rent or the salaries you have, things like that. Variable costs are going to be, you know, your fabric, depending on how much you make that month or how much you produce that month. Utilities, exactly, which can vary according to, yeah, the energy mix of that month. So yeah, thank you for your patience as we sort of went through the business model canvas. I'm really happy that we got such great inputs into this, and I hope this gives you a better idea of yeah, really thinking about the entire business model and how changing one thing could have impacts in other blocks of the business model canvas. So if we go to the next slide, okay, sorry, the slide after that. Great, thank you. So this is following the same example that Naomi shared earlier. This is a case study example of a denim supplier. This is actually from a publication that we released. Oh, it was already last year, that we released last year, which is the textile supplement to the Eco Innovation Manual. So it's really designed for the textile sector. And so this is an example of a business model canvas from the perspective of a denim company. I'm seeing the slides are a bit mixed. So I'll just give you a minute to catch up. But in any case, I think this is a good place to hand off. And I think I'm handing over to Abraham now.
Thank you very much, Minori. That was very detailed, and I'm sure that, you know, we understand very much, you know, sustainability as it pertains to our business model canvas. So right now we'll be looking at SWOT analysis, and the goal is for, you know, all of us to just take a moment to identify what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that our businesses, you know, currently face. So please just take a moment, and I'll just try and explain some things. But essentially, the goal is for us to try and look at our current business, and, you know, begin to also identify if you do value chain thinking, what do you need to begin to think to include in terms of opportunities and threats. Now, so when we speak of opportunities and threats, largely we speak about external factors. And these external factors, you know, they include the political environment, they include, you know, they include include the economy as well. So what effect is the political terrain having on your business? What impact is the economy having on your business? So what impact as well is social space where you are, the context. What is it having on your business? In terms of technology as well. How is technology affecting your business? And also we're looking at it from the point of view of the environment. How are you looking at what currently exists and how is it affecting your business? And overall, the legal apparatus, how is that also affecting your business? See that rightly we already mentioned about the intellectual property, and how we can also have very significant effects on our business. So when we speak about opportunities and threats, we speak largely about external factors. But there are several things. For instance, you can either have secondary research to understand what are the impact of these external factors on your business. But having gathered all of this data, you need to make sense of it and ask yourself, how does this affect eco-innovation, particularly as it pertains to sustainability for your business. Now, when we speak about strengths and weaknesses, we speak largely with respect to your the internal factors that you are able to that you're able to control. And in that regard, usually one of the ways by which you want to know your strength and weakness is not just done by yourself. As a founder, you want to involve your team, you want to have that strategic conversation. So the SWOT analysis is not just something that you do by yourself as a founder. It's something that should be done together with your team, such that you are able to identify your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and strengths, and by and threats. And by doing this, you come up with your strategy development document. And this basically also plays back to what Minorie was talking about when it comes to your business model canvas. When you understand all of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that currently exist, what then happens is that it also affects the way you think about your business. It also affects the way you also begin to relate with your customers and also your suppliers. So we'll just take an example, and then we'll look at an example, that the case study that we've been looking at, just to further explain the SWOT analysis. Next slide. All right, so in the case of denim, we've highlighted a couple of strengths here, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, but this is not exhaustive. So I'm going to read out a couple of strengths and then weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then we'll also share in the chat box, strengths and opportunities, weaknesses, and threats as well. So like I mentioned, when you look at it from the internal origin, which is basically the things that you have control over as a brand, for denim, one of the things that you will see is that as a eco-innovation focused brand, there's a strong community of customers or fans who share values and roots for the brand. You're also seen by customers or as credible, sincere, and authentic. These are things that, as a brand, you are able to, control. As an SME as well, you are the front line of industry criticism. As an SME, you're not at the front line of, industry criticism, and generally allows time, to progress as a sustainability journey. So you are able to, as a business, ensure that you're growing in your path, and as you continue to do value chain thinking, you're constantly incorporating sustainability into your business model, and you're delivering well. Now, in terms of opportunities as well, so because opportunities are external, you can see that from the government point of view, when there are government policies that promote repair and reuse, it's something that you can leverage as a business. And also, so I think that these are some of the things that we can look at. The slides will be available for us to check. I see a lot of questions, but first I want to just ask if you can put in the chat box, what other strengths and opportunities as a business do you see using for your business? Like, if you look at your business currently, what are the strengths and opportunities that you can see? Please clarify, please, can you confirm if you can hear me? So what are the strengths and opportunities? By strengths here, I refer to the things that you can control, and by opportunities, things that are external to you. So strength, someone says that something that is fit. Sorry. For the weakness, we say power, structure, training, lose, loss, finance. And then in terms of opportunity, I think the comments are coming in quickly, so I cannot read them all. But essentially, one of the things that you want to pay attention to as a business is increasing focus on your strength and weakness, which is what you can control. And then when it comes to your opportunities and threats, ensuring that you're able to maximize, the political environment, the the technology as well, and also, your social environment, and also endeavor to ensure that when you look at things like a threat, which are basically things like the limited availability of organic cottons, the price premium, for instance, some people might not be able to afford certain products because of the value that you're producing. It's very important that you begin to look at that in your cost structure and also ensure that you're able to deliver value to your audience. All right, I'll allow Minori continue now, as then we'll take our questions and answers.
Sorry, Abraham, do you mind repeating the last sentence? I heard Minori and then static. Sorry.
Okay, so I was saying that we will move to the question and answer now so that we can attend to all of the questions that might come during the course of the session.
Sure. Yeah, I've just done a quick scroll of the chat because I think there's some really great inputs on here, especially around how economic situations change very quickly. And so this is, something that should be updated quite regularly because there are, the world is always changing. Not that you need to do this every day, but it's something that that businesses need to keep updated on anyway, right? And so this is a way of mapping what you need to keep updated on in one place. I think in French it's assurer la veille, or but basically keep an eye out on especially the the opportunities and the threats. Assurera. Thank you. And so that's definitely something that needs to continually be updated. And it's not just internal domestic things. It could also be for example, the EU textile strategy that I mentioned. Depending on your business, it could be an opportunity or a threat, right? So yeah, just to say thank you. I think I think it's there's been some really great comments, so with that I'll go to the question and answer. I think we have a slide. Yes.
Hi, Minori. There's been some questions collated from the beginning of the session. So if you'd like, I could start sharing some with you.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
We'll still welcome the participants to keep asking other questions in the chat box. So for starters, back to basics, and this question has been framed in different ways. For a layman who is new to the subject of eco-innovation, sustainability, where do you advise they start from? And another variation of the question is, hello, I would like to better understand in a few words the word eco-innovation, please, in the fields of textile.
Sure. So it's maybe I'll start with the first question before I forget it. It's basically the best way to start is to do the life cycle inventory to really understand what your current situation is, and then do the life cycle thinking template, which was briefly shown in one of the slides. These will help you spot your environmental hotspots, to keep that in mind. And sorry, Naomi, the second question was eco-innovation.
Let me just get to it one moment. So still around, help us understand in a few words what eco-innovation is in the field of textile.
Sure. So eco-innovation in general is about looking at your business model, your current business model, and thinking how I can diversify my business models to have a better impact on the environment, my social impact and also my profitability, basically, because we don't want companies to go broke being green. In terms of textiles, it's really thinking about how do I deliver value, because the linear business model of, you know, take, make, use, dispose is not environmentally sustainable, it's not socially sustainable. And so it's thinking about, are there other ways that I can make money beyond just selling physical products? You know, can I rent out my products? Can I, you know, offer repair services for my products, so that, you know, these products don't get thrown away, and I also get another opportunity to talk to my client, talk to my customers. Yeah, so it's just really thinking about the business model itself, and if that is, and evaluating if there is another way of approaching it.
Thanks for that, Minori. We'll now jump to a question around the SWOT. And this is apart from the Madrid Agreement and protocol that protects industrial property such as clothing designs, what other agreements can African designers join to eliminate the threat of a larger fast fashion company in China copying your designs once you blow up on the internet, especially if that's one of the threat points out of your SWOT analysis?
So intellectual property is not my area of work, unfortunately, so I can't really advise on international agreements, but the fact that you know, this is something that gets identified in the SWOT analysis, and you know, obviously that would inform the business model itself and how you communicate to customers, things like that. Yeah, that's definitely something that would impact your business thinking. But yeah, I'm sorry, I can't give any further advice on intellectual property protections.
Thank you for that, Minori. So there's a couple again of questions which are asking about eco-innovation and localizing it for Africa. For example, is it expensive to turn a small business completely eco-friendly? And then there's also a variation of the question. All business models are still cheaper versus the environmentally centric models. What is the best way to implement the sustainable practices in an economic manner that does not affect general performance of the company? And then one final comment again around localization of eco-innovation in Africa. It's, you know, asking if the world really understands what's going on the ground in Africa. So the question is about localization of eco-innovation. How do we adapt it in a way that is sustainable and possible within the African context?
Yeah, so the eco-innovation methodology is really just giving a combination of different templates and exercises for companies to fill out in their own context, to help them understand the African context, but also potentially if they want to export, the context of those companies as well. So the whole point of the whole idea behind eco-innovation is that you know, we give you these templates and this sort of methodology to follow, and you apply it to your own context, because, you know, what works in, say, Germany will not necessarily work in Ghana. And so, you know, it really has to be appropriate. And so it's up to the businesses to bring that knowledge into the eco-innovation methodology and use the templates to analyze it. I just want to emphasize again that we just went through a very small part of the eco-innovation process. There are a lot of templates, and I think they'll be sent out afterwards, or the links will be sent out afterwards, including on how to make sure that profitability is maintained or, ideally improved. And so this is all in the materials that will get sent out.
Thank you, Minori. So there's this other question. January 2020 on cotton farming in Kenya. How can we integrate sustainable cotton farming?
Sorry, I think you cut out a little bit, or I can find the question.
Sorry, can you hear me, Minori?
Yes, I can hear you now, thanks.
Okay, great. So I did a design research in January 2020 on cotton farming in Kenya. How can we incorporate sustainable cotton farming?
Yeah, that's a very big question. We at UNEP, we don't comment on specific techniques or processes. And so, yeah, all I can really comment on would be that it's really important to work with all the stakeholders along the cotton value chain for that. But unfortunately, on behalf of UNEP, we don't comment on specific processes.
Not to worry, Minori. There's this question which has been repeated. Truly, I really want to know the backlash against sustainability.
Session that you accepted it. Actually, you attended.
Sorry, for the person that wrote this, could you expand a little bit on what you mean by the backlash against sustainability?
Ngwane, please elaborate your question, the repeated one about wanting to know the backlash against sustainability. So there's a question. 15 million tons of textile waste arrives Accra, Ghana every week. Our textile industry is non-existent. How is that sustainable? How do we compete with used garment prices?
Yeah, textile waste is obviously a very big environmental hotspot. We know that in Ghana in particular, Ghana is a country that has a lot of textile waste exported from European countries in particular. And so it's, it's something that, quite frankly, it really decimates domestic textile industries because, as you say, it's impossible to compete with used garment prices that even in their first sale, those prices are already incredibly low, right? And even when they're full price in retail shops, it's very difficult to compete. That's something that we are working on at UNEP to ensure that, these textiles are not dumped. Firstly, because that's a very big environmental hotspot, but that also, they don't, that there are policies to ensure that domestic textile companies are not decimated by it.
Thanks, Minori.
Sorry, Naomi, go ahead.
Sorry, I might have to take you back to basics. There's a French speaker who's just dropped a question. I'm French speaking and I do not understand the 5 arguments that make eco-innovation useful.
Sure. So that was the 5 business drivers, right? From the first, from earlier in the first introduction.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I can try my very bad French, but also apologize to everyone else for having to hear it. Ok, donc les 5 drivers pour éco-innovation, c'est accéder à des niveaux et des marchés qui sont en croissance pour améliorer la profitabilité sur la chaîne de valeur. Le troisième, c'est assurer la veille sur les politiques. Le quatrième, c'est attirer plus d'investissements. Le cinquième, c'est améliorer la productivité et les capacités techniques. Just to also add that our eco-innovation manual and the textile supplement are available in French as well. So we will be sending the links out to that afterwards.
Thanks, Minori. If I could just have you repeat what you said in English, if that's possible, that would be great, so that the translators on the different channels can also like translate from English to Portuguese and Arabic.
Sure. So I just went over the 5 drivers for eco-innovation. So the first is to access new and expanding markets. The second is to increase profitability along the value chain. The third is to stay ahead of standards and regulations.
And closure.
And this
Yes,
is,
so I don't know whether they are in on questions and answers, and then after that.
So this is to stay ahead of standards and regulations. This is both in your country where you manufacture, but also in the countries where you export to. The fourth is to attract investments, and the fifth is to increase productivity and technical capacity.
Thank you, Minori. And we have a question here. Knowing the impact of fast fashion on the environment, how does one ensure ready to wear brand doesn't fall under this category?
So the question is to how do we avoid being part of the fast fashion problem? Is that correct?
Because the products being made by most of the fashion designers here are niche products. And as much as there's a push for scalability, how would you ensure that ready to wear does not fall under the fast fashion labeling?
Yeah, sure. So it's really like for us, we see the issues with fast fashion is that the price doesn't reflect at all the cost, right? So it doesn't include the cost of the social protections that are required for just just livelihoods. It doesn't include the cost to the environment for the greenhouse gas emissions, for the water used, for the chemical pollution, all of that. So there is a need to not only sort of understand where your impacts are, but also communicate very transparently with customers on your efforts behind it and what your vision is for your company, but also for the textile value chain in general. So having really transparent and clear communications with customers for us is very important. And that's something that fast fashion by design does not do and has not really tried to do.
Great, thanks, Minori. Going now to the SWOT and another SWOT analysis question. How frequent should a SWOT analysis for a fashion business be conducted given where the economy is with the constant imbalances and fluctuations?
I would say
Yes.
that- Sorry, go ahead, Minori.
No,
Good
thanks,
afternoon.
Abraham. I think we were saying the same thing. I think we touched on this question at the end of Abraham's section, but you know, obviously, I can't tell you exactly how many times you know, this needs to be updated, but you know, this is something that if a situation changes very quickly, you know, this is something that you can update as you go. This process and these exercises should definitely not be you know, memorialized and set in stone. It's something, because your business evolves, the world evolves, they need to be updated with that as well.
Okay, just to add to what Minori has said, you know, it's very important that you constantly update your SWOT analysis. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going over to the document, but what also happens is as there's a change, there's always a constant change, you know, in the personal factors. And so what that means is that you need to be abreast of what's going on around you. You cannot say that, oh, you're doing business and you're trying your best to just, you know, ensure that your team is doing the right thing. You also need to be very conscious of what's going on in the external factors so that you are able to maximize opportunities and minimize threats. So it's very important that from time to time, you're constantly doing a SWOT analysis. So your ears have to be to the ground so that you can maximize opportunities and reduce threats.
Thanks for that, Abraham and Minori. And then we have another question here. While we try to imbibe sustainable production and businesses in the fashion industry here, our governments are so very open to influx of fashion from China and other parts of Asia. How does the UN environment treaties help countries balance these opposing factors?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Naomi. I think that's a really good point that there's only so much that businesses can influence, and that policymakers really need to be involved in this process. And so actually UNEP is working through the Eco-Innovation project actually with policymakers in Kenya, Tunisia, and South Africa, for example. We are working with policymakers to help them understand the policy gaps that they have, that SMEs in particular need to become more circular. So that includes what sort of financing policies that governments can adopt to help you know, SMEs get loans to go green, for example. So yeah, that's definitely something that UNEP works on. We have, for example, the UNEP Finance Initiative that works directly with governments across different countries. We have the Global Alliance for Circular Economy and Resource Efficiency that works with policymakers on what policies on circularity they can adopt, and really pushing other countries to adopt those policies, always with a focus on SMEs, because we know that they are the businesses that are the most vulnerable to changes, but they also need the most policy support.
Thanks for that, Minori. I'll ask you a question that has been shot multiply in the chat box. And it's, hey, Minori, can you give us any examples of people who are leveraging technology to improve their sustainability in the fashion businesses that are making an impact so far?
So, for example, the UNECE is working on blockchain technology to trace, to improve transparency throughout different supply chains. So, for example, they're doing I think, leather and cotton to start with. And so, yeah, this is one example of how we're using technology to improve transparency on environmental claims along the value chain. Yeah, this is a particularly interesting project because it starts from, cotton, cotton as a natural resource and ends in, the final product. And what we're doing is working through brands in collaboration with the UNECE to go through their entire value chain, to use blockchain technology to really understand better the journey of their products.
Thanks for that, Minori. And going now to e-commerce, does the eco-innovation sustainability apply to e-commerce companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because you don't have a physical store, it doesn't mean that eco-innovation doesn't apply. What I think is particularly interesting for e-commerce is that there's this opportunity to use data collected to really change people's perspective of consumption, right? Because currently, with fast fashion, people are incentivized to buy more and new all the time, and these objects don't have any value anymore, or are not given a lot of value by us or by the retailers anymore. And so e-commerce is actually an interesting way of getting people to spend a little bit more time researching, and you can give a lot more information than you can in a storefront. So it's a really interesting opportunity to educate consumers, but also have that conversation a bit more in detail.
Thank you. I'll take you back to a business modeling question. Is it advisable or practical to have a hybrid customer segment for their BM, which I'm guessing is business modeling, products for regular consumers and others for high-end? So around hybrid customer segmentation, can you cater to multiple target markets?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the eco-innovation, the whole idea behind it is that businesses should not depend on any one business model, because especially in fashion, tastes change very quickly. So it would be sensible to have to target different customer segments and have business models that cater specifically to each as well.
Thank you for that, Minori. We'll just take two more questions and then we'll close the session. Hi, Minori. Are there any initiatives in Nigeria from the UN? I heard of Kenya, Tunisia so far. How do we make leather here based on the UNECE?
So I don't know all the UN projects on textiles, especially from other UN agencies. So I don't know for Nigeria specifically. The United Nations Sustainable Fashion Alliance would probably be a good resource to look into, to see if there are projects that you can.
Thanks, Minori. Now for the final question, which seems to have been repeated on multiple occasions in the chat in different variations, and maybe you did address it, but again, because of its popularity, ensuring sustainability can be expensive. Is there any specific sustainability support for startups or small businesses?
Yeah, so that's not really my scope of work. But you know, I know of, for example, the SEED initiative, which has a incubator for startups for the textile sector, where they, you know, provide mentorship and also help them do investment pitches, things like that. So that's one example, but I'm sorry, I'm not able to think of much more. That's not really my usual area.
Thanks, Minori. And this has been truly helpful. We've not exhausted all the questions, so we will request the participants, if you do have any questions that have not been addressed, kindly email us at Fashionomics Help Desk at cchubnigeria.com. If I can have Omola Bake and Abraham post the emails for the respective programs where all questions can be addressed. We've also received quite a number of questions about the Moodle platform, and we will request that you get in touch with your respective administrators. If you are in the incubator program, please get in touch with the team at ICT to walk you through the instructions and guide you to the self-enrollment on the Moodle platform. Here at the accelerator, again, just shoot your questions to Fashionomics Help Desk at cchubnigeria.com, the WhatsApp group. Yes, and we will guide you on how to self-register on the Moodle platform. Minori, Abraham, thank you. This has been a very enlightening session. We are very, very grateful. As you can see from the participants, the gratitude is flowing in. So thank you very much for an enlightening session, and hopefully to a more sustainable and eco-friendly Africa. Thank you, participants. See you soon. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Merci, shukran, obrigado.